Hello, I'm Dan Rather, and welcome to the CBS Evening News Online Edition. Just ahead, the high price of oil. What keeps driving it up, and what does it mean for you, the consumers? We'll take a hard look. Also, federal judges and their families under attack. You'll meet a judge whose wife was nearly killed. What does this sort of thing do to American justice? We'll give you the inside story and the legacy of 9/11. You'll meet a woman whose life was saved by the brave men of Ladder 6. How are they doing now? We'll tell you in a reporter's notebook. It's all starting now on the CBS Evening News Online Edition. Wall Street took a big tumble today, and rising oil and gasoline prices are getting the blame. The fear is higher energy prices may soon start hurting the overall economy. The Dow Industrials lost 107 points today, the NASDAQ 12. So what's driving oil and gasoline prices ever higher? CBS News business correspondent Anthony Mason has some answers tonight.
In the trading pits, oil frantically flirted again with an all-time high today. The closing price of nearly $55 a barrel is almost 60% higher than a year ago.
If you think that we're ever going to get back to the days of cheap oil, forget about it. Those days are long gone.
And crude prices are the key ingredient in gas prices. Across the country, a gallon of regular is averaging $2 again, up 26 cents from this time last year. But OPEC leaders say it's not their fault. It's a shortage of U.S. refining capacity.
We can ship you all the crude oil you want, but if you can't refine it, it's not going to translate into lower gasoline prices.
You hate to agree with an OPEC official, but he's right. That's part of the problem. We haven't built a new refinery in this country for 25 years.
And our thirst for oil seems insatiable. Americans alone are now using 21 million barrels a day. And in the exploding economies of China and India, demand is surging even faster than economists predicted.
Do we have the supply to keep up with it?
That gap is tight, and it's tightening.
John Kingston, Platts chief oil analyst, says the world's oil supplies are growing, but the thirst for crude is growing faster.
If this demand continues to grow, what happens to the price of oil?
You go from 98% of capacity to 99 to 99.5% of capacity. You simply get greater competition for that last barrel, and that will tend to drive the price higher.
Just how high is the question? Analysts say there's no roadmap for where they could be headed, because in the past, oil price spikes have usually been caused by some tightening in supply. This time, it's all about a demand that won't dry up. So analysts say we're in for a new era for oil prices. And Dan, this is uncharted territory.
Anthony Mason, thanks. In Illinois, there's a new turn in the investigation of the killings of a federal judge's mother and husband. A white racist who's awaiting sentencing for plotting to kill the judge reportedly tried to pass a coded message to his followers a few months ago. This case in Chicago spotlights a growing danger to federal judges. CBS's Cynthia Bowers talked to one judge who knows this firsthand and gives you the inside story.
Morning.
Every day, federal judge Charles Bryant takes a different route to work.
In the real world, I'm at risk.
And when cases get tense,
the Honorable Charles L. Bryant presiding.
He even carries a handgun. But none of that could protect his family in 1987 when they became the target.
If I'd waited to come home at the regular time, it would have been the end.
His wife was nearly killed by poison candy that arrived in the mail just before Valentine's Day. A fingerprint on the box linked the candy to a man the judge had sentenced 7 years before.
So you would have had no expectation that he would ever come back into your life?
None whatever that he would come back in my life.
For Judge Bryant, the attack was a near miss. But just the next year, in a nearby town, a federal judge was murdered in his own backyard. And a year after that, federal judge Robert Vance was killed by a bomb delivered to his house.
I'm perfectly safe within these walls.
But you can't live inside these walls 24/7.
No, you cannot.
The intense security at federal courthouses is one level of protection, but with 700 threats a year made against federal judges, it's increasingly difficult to guarantee their safety once they're outside the courthouse doors.
You can't protect all of them 24 hours a day.
Former New York Police Commissioner Howard Safer was a U.S. Marshal when Judge Bryant's wife was poisoned. Today, he believes the Marshal's job of protecting federal judges is getting tougher.
If the judicial system in this country cannot operate without intimidation, then everything that we value in this free society is going to be in danger.
The murder of federal Judge Joan Lefkoe's husband and mother last week in Chicago is something Judge Bryant says he doesn't discuss at home. His wife is still too frightened. But he says his biggest concern is that fear will keep potential judges off the bench.
Why is it important that they not be afraid?
To be able to do the right thing. It takes courage sometimes to do the right thing.
Courage that's being tested again as the hunt for another killer continues. Cynthia Bowers, CBS News, White Plains, New York.
For the past few days, we've been looking through our reporter's notebook at some of the stories we've covered in 4 decades at CBS News. Tonight, the biggest story of all. It broke on a late summer morning 3.5 years ago.
That was a very scary time. I knew how serious our situation was.
No story over these many years. Not the Vietnam War.
This will be her last goodbye for today.
Not the assassination of one president.
And there's the president waving goodbye.
Or the fall of another. No story affected Americans as personally as 9/11. Or so profoundly changed our lives. September 11th, 2001. You will remember this day as long as you live. Among the heroes that day, and there were many, were the firefighters of New York City who raced inside the burning towers.
This will go down as a kind of Pearl Harbor of terrorism.
You may recall the remarkable story of the men of Ladder 6.
When did you come across Josephine?
I think it was around the 18th or 19th floor. I think it was at that point that we promised her that we would get her out of the building, but we needed a little bit of help from her.
Josephine Harris had survived the flames and smoke in the North Tower.
Do you think you could have made it down below without the help of these men?
No, I wouldn't have made it.
Josephine needed to rest a moment. It was a delay that saved them. By luck or fate, as the tower crashed down, where they stood was the only part of the entire structure that did not give.
At that point, did you think you were finished?
Yeah. I sat there and I thought of my wife and the kids.
That's Mike Meldrum walking out. The destruction that took the lives of 343 firefighters did not take one of the men of Ladder 6.
There's no way to explain how we walked out of there.
There isn't a day that goes by that you don't think about what happened on September 11th.
Jay Jonas now is a battalion chief.
How are you doing? I'm doing okay.
He's got good days and bad days.
The worst of it is when you reflect back on some of the guys that you knew personally that were lost.
Only one of that squad is still at the Chinatown firehouse. Sal D'Agostino is there. Billy Butler and Matt Komorowski were promoted, now lieutenants. Tommy retired, and Mike Meldrum is on light duty, still recovering from 9/11.
Mike has good days and bad days, same as I do, same as everybody else does. So it's going to be a struggle, for all of us, probably for the rest of our lives.
As the weeks and months passed, the anger and pain began to ease. But we will never forget.
In the immediate wake of 9/11, and certainly here in New York City, I've never seen the city so as one. The city is a different place than it was on September 10th. I have friends who live outside the city, and I saw them recently, and they said, well, everybody in the city seems so friendly. I think a little bit of small town came into New York City as a result of September 11th. It was such a unique experience, not only for the city, but for the country. It was a shared horror, a shared tragedy.
September 11th, 2001. We've shared a lot in the 24 years we've been meeting here each evening. And before I say goodnight this night, I need to say thank you. Thank you to the thousands of wonderful professionals at CBS News, past and present, with whom it's been my honor to work over these years. And a deeply felt thanks to all of you who have let us into your homes night after night. It has been a privilege, and one never taken lightly. Not long after I first came to the anchor chair, I briefly signed off using the word courage. I want to return to it now in a different way. To a nation still nursing a broken heart for what happened here in 2001, and especially to those who found themselves closest to the events of September 11th. To our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines in dangerous places. To those who have endured the tsunami, and to all who have suffered natural disasters and who must now find the will to rebuild. To the oppressed and to those whose lot it is to struggle in financial hardship or in failing health. To my fellow journalists in places where reporting the truth means risking all. And to each of you, courage. For the CBS Evening News, Dan Rather reporting. Good night.